Welcome back, guys. We're going to be going through another week breakdown of EU, GU, DXY. Starting off with the challenges, we're going to go through the whole of October, how it's been on the higher time frames down as well. I can't even get into my account, so I'm going to leave that. As for the fivers, down 0.5% on phase one there. It's been a slow month, it really has. Was expecting more, to be honest, but can't take trades if they're not really aligning with my strategy. I'm going to have to just let you guys know that I'm down 0.5% on the funded, and I'm actually up 3%. Because I was up 4.5% the last video. Took one loss, 1.5% risk, so up 3%. So we're still looking good on FTMO. Fivers, yeah, we're at break even really. Taking the challenges as they come. Obviously, I've had multiple 100Ks pass this year and had multiple 100K funded payouts from that account on both FTMO and Alpha. So the year's been very successful. I don't want to spoil it to the end of the year. So we're going to keep going. If moves present, I'm going to take them. But I'm in no rush. I'm in no rush at all. For this month then, let's discuss everything. So, wow, don't even know where to start. When we last talked, I believe it was when we finally saw a big weekly bullish candle on DXY. And this is where I discussed that the pullbacks into that 103 area were my favoured buy targets. I think at this point, it's looking like we could even come into 104. But yeah, during this week here, to come into this week, obviously we saw huge volume. So my prediction was to see further upside with a weekly confirmation candle. And you can see how this aligned with EU and GU as well. But like the whole idea is that if we zoom out here, you can see this is a key area of liquidity, demand, whatever you want to call it. It was very unlikely we're going to break down, and we definitely got that right. We had 3 failures at 100, the key level. Looking good to come up. EU was very similar in the aspect that we had a weekly confirmation and we broke back below 110, which was also, you can see a key level here. We like to fake out at this level. Didn't really see price hold above it with any support or any kind of real retest really of 110. Therefore, after failing to the upside that many times here within this area, you can see that double topped, looking for that downside. GU was very similar as well. Let's go back to that week. And like the confirmations were massive, they were strong. And it was almost in the back of my head. Next week, after a huge volume week, we don't normally see too much in the market. Therefore, I had to approach with caution. But really, the way I would like to have seen this week go would have been it's my dog. I'd like to see pullbacks into this area to see the upside, to get a high formed, so then we could retest 101, 100, somewhere in this area. We've got, fair value gaps all the way up here. And then can get easier buys, which are correlate to the sells on the dollar pairs. And you can see that for the way that week would have been going on EU as well. You can see there was this area in here that we could have seen price come into. And same for GU. Is there any areas here? I mean, yeah, to be honest, you had a order block fair value gap formed off this area. But if you look at what we did here, the full week it just bottomed out. I feel like there wasn't too much volume. There was a bit more in EU. And we did come down to make further lows. But for me, I need to not be buying at the highs or lows on the daily time frame. It's not my favoured positions. And I don't really trade that way. Let's get this off. So I was not looking for any options there. And that's just the way it goes. You can't always get the trades that you want. Well, there's no point taking the alternative, is there, when they're not lining up. So this is the week here. We had previous week. So we're on Thursday of this week, which is now the 17th. So the week that finished on the 11th closed like this on DXY. There was some sort of glitch on capital.com. You'll be able to see it here from the 1 minute candle. We saw a few glitches in price with a wick there and then a close. Took that into account, and realistically, even though that candle closed bearish, it was really up here where it closed. So again, bullish. Don't really have an obstacle until this area here, which was where the favoured pullback was on the higher time frames on the weekly. You can see here for how we were moving. If we want to come down, we really now need to find issues at a weekly obstacle to the upside. So we're still very heavily bullish. Obviously accounting for pullbacks, and this is where again, like once we see this, ideally would still want to see a retracement before we get that move up, because from this consolidation, after we've taken out these highs, we'd want to see some sort of retest realistically. Very rarely do you see, especially DXY, just push one direction. And we obviously have seen that a little bit more in the summer from obviously these highs. But we've had consolidation periods. It's just not moved that great in the last 3 months for how I like to approach the market. Go to EU. Once again, going into this week, we were to look at the areas. We've obviously created a clear weekly area here to come into. This as a confirmation candle, I still think it's pretty good. Reason is because the next obstacle is obviously in this area. You've got a good 50-60 pips before you get there. Therefore, I would have preferred to see something like this to then see the downside. We could have just dropped, and that's what we did in the end. But I was not preferring that idea, to be honest. So really looking at the weekly there, preferred to see a retest of 110 as well, coming back up. And if we go to the overall weekly, we can see here that we had this area. So if we were going to hold within the previous weekly range, I think that this order block would have been decent for an entry off. So I had a higher time frame position set within these areas here. I had one set at the daily for pullback. I'm not too sure how big my stops were. They weren't that big. I think they're only about, it was covering 1.1. I think it's about 25 pips. And then I had another position set higher up here within the daily / weekly area around this 3-hour order block, which gave us the NFP push. So my idea was if this was the NFP push and we were going to see continued downside on EU, I would have liked to have seen this high respected, because otherwise I just think we're going to go back to the upside. Therefore, another entry was set. Again, not too big of a stop. I was just trying to cover this area and looking for that big sell-off again. So there was some decent positions set there on EU. And then same for GU. Obviously, it's nice talking about it, but it all kind of come into there not being any positions set because of how we've just dropped again this week. If you go onto the weekly, similar on GU. The only thing I don't like about GU as much, we're going to mark out this low. Obviously, it's a key point in the weekly and daily, from the fact that if you go to the daily time frame, we're still in a bullish leg. This made the sells a little bit more tricky, and with the fact that within this weekly you have a clear double 50% tap of this weekly area, I was a bit skeptical on downside, and really I'd be more bearish once we actually took out that low. Therefore, it wasn't quite aligning as much with EU and DXY. You can see here that this was when Bailey announced the potential confirmation of the next bank rate cut, which obviously then pushed us way past the initial 1.32 key level. But then the last week and a half just saw consolidation. So my idea was, okay, where's that consolidation coming from? Well, it's obviously coming from this daily. If we mark that in, you can see that price had a massive issue the whole week. The whole week we struggled. Now, it wasn't yet confirmations in my eyes, because the reason being is if we're not too sure who's in control, bulls or bears, I'd look at this and say, yep, we've had the sell-off. We're still creating lower highs and lower lows. I need to see a break of structure on the daily for a body to give me confirmation that we can get a further pullback to at least the previous weekly high. So this would be the previous weekly high. And of course, I was looking for the weekly range to be broken, ideally to the upside. Obviously, it ended up breaking to the downside. This is where the loss come from. So my idea on GU was that, okay, maybe we are going to still hold this bullish leg. We need to see then confirmations for that. So I did wait patiently enough, I would say. I wouldn't say it was the best setup in the world, because you're going a little bit against the weekly candle, which is obviously difficult. But if we were to go to Monday to start the week here, you can see DXY opened up where it should have closed, and then it started running up. We have not had an issue really yet. There's clear liquidity though sitting around this area, and we haven't quite come through it. What we did on Monday though is we broke the order block, so we're kind of getting confirmation that we're still continuing bullish, and I was quite surprised at that, to be real. And then as for EU, just opened the week down, made a new low. I think there was options if there was this low being lower that I could have took a sell on Monday. There just wasn't the art to be caught from looking for sells within seeing these highs respected on the 1 hour time frame, which would obviously look, you know, something along the lines of seeing Asian session break. And if we saw that, you could have probably fibbed this up and caught a move within the 1 hour. Where is it? Yeah, the 1 hour fair value gap high there. But I had my stops there to see the covered POIs. You can see that 1 hour order block was looking to see that get respected. And then that low was only here. You're looking at a 1.43. For me, that's not worth the risk. I need a 2R, so just had to let that go. But was a decent option. I think the idea being, especially with the ECB rate coming in today, that it's almost guaranteed we're going to see a cut and it's just going to push the euro down further. Maybe that's already getting priced in coming into this week. From that point, EU's just been untradeable when it's just been dropping like this. I'm not a continuation trader in that way. If I was looking to be in a position here, then the sell that I caught from this candle was my shot to hold the trade and maybe close partials at the low. Once we see confirmation that we're not holding upside, then really it's a case of if you trailed your stop loss, you'd have done very well there. Probably even to the point at which you could have seen the 4 hour legs respected and you may still be in this trade now. If we were to mark in how you could have maybe maximised that move from the high. You can see here we formed a new high, come down, pull back again, you start trailing your stop loss, and then you form another high here, stop loss above there, still holding it, and then you make further lows and you're just still holding this trade and you'd have been maximising that. But this is where I come back to where, how often do you see that on EU? And it's alright you looking at that and saying, you know what, I'm going to hold. But it's never as easy, you know. You see the bearish pullbacks within the overall range. Even in here, there's huge pullbacks in there. But we've just seen straight downside. It's not even been easy to catch at all. Therefore, I pretty much propose that this month in October has been a correction of the big upside push we had in July/August, which again, I was very, very unlikely able to catch a move from with how it was moving at that time. And therefore, I trade better in daily ranges or weekly ranges. And until I see that, I'm just going to sit on my hands. But as for GU, this was worth a little shot for me. We're going to the week there. We saw Monday, Tuesday. This is where Tuesday closed like this. And I was like, okay, within this push up, this is the first time we've seen a weak bullish candle. Again, we've had 2 candles now. One failing to break the previous body high. It wasn't giving clear signs of downside. There was a potential struggle within this liquidity area. And the reason being, this area was the area that I like to see price come down from. Was one, because this was the area that I said weeks ago. That including the fact that the big sell-off from this fair value gap order block is a great area. Within this area where we had consolidation before we saw the main move down, if we're going to fail to the upside, it was obviously going to be somewhere between 103 and 103,500, or even 104 if you want to put it like that. So it was likely there was going to be a pullback. As for GU, we started the week on Monday here with a weak bearish candle. Now I didn't buy off this. I need to see the lower highs broken, as I said. What there was though was a clear sign that the previous weekly low was failed to be taken out. Every time we formed lower highs from this point, we've at least formed a new wick low. This is the point at which we didn't. And then my head started going, okay, if we can see a bullish candle engulfing, then in my opinion, that is worth a trading day. So off Tuesday's candle, straight in looking for a move. What we could see is that, okay, you didn't have a hugely strong confirm, but you did have 8 candles failing to break this daily. What you also had was, you had an engulfing candle. We had broke the high of the previous daily candle. We have created a new weekly high. That was the only potential that this could be the top wick for the week and we could see downside. However, I would look at this and say, what POI on the daily have we seen a struggle into if that is going to be deemed a rejection? And to me, that is not a significant order block. It's not a good order block, so I would not deem that to be a rejection. There was enough for me going here for a move. And if we're going to go and look and fit this up on the 1 hour, we can see that going into Asian, we create some consolidation, but clearly within this golden area, we can see that there was a nice 1 hour fair value gap low to take a buy off on GU. This was a split position because I felt comfortable, especially with my stops below previous weekly low, but then I also had a position below the leg where we made this wick low as well. So one stop was about 20, and it was actually a pretty good R. It was nearly a 4R. The second position was, again, if we go to this, same entry, just a little bit of a lower stop loss below previous weekly low, which let's just say it's 40. And the condition of this was that CPI for pound was coming in. From what I gathered, I made a bit of an update on fundamentals. I was a little bit skeptical on them dropping inflation by more than 0.3 and was thinking that maybe from 2.2 to 1.9, which was forecasted, we were going to see somewhere in the middle, because we have not seen bank rate cuts enough yet to kind of justify that big of an inflation cut. You know, going below 2%, which is the target for Bank of England, or, you know, obviously like the MPC, I just did not expect to see that big of a drop. 0.5 is huge. And what that did then, when we had the inflation come out, and I'm setting these alerts before 7, so I'm expecting news to maybe tag me in. You know, we can see here that 7, it just took me out. And it did slip me on FTMO. On fivers, I lost less. And I was out within a minute. And that's obviously a shock, because usually I don't get tagged in through news. One mistake I've made is the fivers, if you know the rule, is you cannot trade 2 minutes before and after news. So I've wasted a loss there on the fivers. And that's what I was annoyed about. I'm more than happy to take a loss. This was, in my eyes, a good enough trade. There was still ideas for us holding the overall bullish leg. But we have broken it now. And I think that I just shouldn't have took a loss on the fivers, and I would have been fine on the FTMOs, you know, losing 0.5% and 1.5% on phase 1. Because I've waited all month for a trade. I haven't took a trade all month. I've took one loss now. And to be fair, you have to take risk at some point. And to me, that was something that I discussed in the weekly outlook. We have to break the previous weekly range. We're struggling to the downside multiple times. Obviously, the news was the catalyst to take us down. But, you know, fair play. If anyone caught sells from there, it was difficult. It really was. I did have higher time frames set above previous weekly high for a sell. And this is just where, like, I don't want to be selling at the low points. I want to be selling, coming back into higher time frame POIs, liquidity points, previous weekly high. I had one position set with a 25 pip stop and was pretty good R, to be fair, to this area. Previous weekly low, looking at like 4.4, and then I had a second position set on the higher time frames somewhere within the main drop off. And it says again, same as EU, the higher time frame position, stop loss did not need to really be above that area, just purely down to the fact that, yeah, we could come and test 1.32 with a news event, and that's something that I was taking into account. Oh, my thing's glitching out here, my video. Hopefully it's alright. I was taking these things into account, that this was the NFP drop. Again, didn't want to see price come above that. So I had to have a position set here with stops. I think we just had them here. And I had enough R to play with. That's the thing. There was enough from the first position. If that lost, still had the second position there to take. But yeah, that was the week, really. We're obviously now coming up on DXY still. EU's down. GU's also just gone down, and we have broken the bullish leg on the daily time frame. You can see here now, confirmed. So I am more bearish on GU for the meantime, especially now if we can see this weekly come down. But yeah, we are pulling back still in the weekly, so it's key that we're still bullish. There could be deeper pullbacks, but yeah, let's see what we do. I think the video's got quite laggy, so I'm just going to end this here. But I hope you guys had a great trading week, or a couple of trading weeks, let's say. I'm only going to do videos when I deem them to be worthy. I'm not going to waste people's time watching stuff that, if they're not really seeing any moves or whatever. But we'll be back. I think the key things you can take from the way I do things is that you wait 2.5 weeks for a trade does not guarantee you're going to win. That's a hard one, and that's something that I don't like at all. I struggle with that, but I don't act out upon it to make bad decisions from maybe having a loss when I've waited that long. That's something I'm getting better at. The patience is going to pay off. There's going to be months where there's going to be multiple trades and they're all going to win. This month has been very slow, but it's better to have a slow month with a loss here and there, maybe not even taking a winner, than going on a 10 trade losing streak and doing that after you've just made a 5 trade winning streak in the previous month and your confidence has gone sky high. Like, I made a good 7.5 R last month. I did very well. I caught 3 wins, 2 losses, I think. This month's been 1 loss, 0 wins. But this is the way I want to approach things going into next year, because I'm building, I'm learning, and everything is a stepping stone to that next point. And you can't get to that next point until you prove that you're worthy enough to get to that point. And sitting out the market, I've called direction for weeks. I called the whole thing here. And I only caught 1 move, and I've took a loss through this idea as well. Have not caught any trade on GU for a while now, because it has been just pumping. And when it's given you an option, I think the last trade I caught within GU was probably around the start of September here on the sell-off. And that's it. That's all I've caught. And obviously, I was looking for downside, but it hasn't come in. And sometimes you just got to sit out. But make sure that you take the right trades and you don't rush. If the market isn't presenting your strategy at the minute, then the time will come that it does. And you've just got to capitalise on it then. And I'll be proving to you, if November's a great month and there's 25 R to catch and I catch 20, then all these things I'm saying now will make 100% sense. But let's see a good end to 2024. Looking forward to going into 2025. Got loads of ideas for how I want to approach things. Let's smash it. See you guys later. Take care.